technical problems, and welcome to this session on evolving innovation space, RDI policies, and impact evaluation. My name is Helga Kallekoski, and I will be chairing the session. I work as an associate professor at Vaasa University at the School of Management and at the research platform on innovation and entrepreneurship, InnoLab. So our aim really today in this 1 hour session is to firstly present our ongoing research project on the topic and then have a discussion with our different speakers and audience about the topic. So we really encourage you from the audience to also participate in the discussion. In particular, we have invited our commentators to think about some reflections on the question, where do they see the biggest gaps and blind spots in innovation policy evaluation in the context of rapidly evolving innovation space. And our speakers today are Jari Kuntu. He's a rector of Vaasa University and long-term science and innovation expert. Then we have Peter Stensson, director in Swedish Agency for Growth Policy Analysis. Then Lena Kuntu, innovation specialist at Vaasa University, and Johanna Kallekoski, doctoral student in research studies at Vaasa University. And we also have our research, broader research group members, professors Martin Meyer and Flowers in the audience as well, participating to the discussion. So as a technical issue, I would suggest that we first take all presentations and commentaries in a row and then have a discussion with the audience. And since I'm sharing the slides now, I cannot see the chat function, but please let me know via audio if there is something you want me to know. And yeah, without further ado, please, Jari, you can continue next, and please let me know when you want me to change the slides. Thank you.
Welcome everyone, and I let you know when to change the screen. So our topic is about evolving innovation space, research development and innovation policies, and impact evaluation. Next one. We set up a project here recognizing that the innovation space is evolving, and so should also the evaluation methods evolve when the world is changing. So the goal of the project is to create new and improve existing empirically testable policy impact analysis concepts. We will look at 4 novel policy and impact evaluation cases. Next one. They include NSF, broader impact activities immediacy inclusion criterion case, which is an analysis of a portfolio of RDI projects in the US and how they, what kind of impacts they have. Then we have a major private funding organization, Novo Nordisk, and there we will look at how private RDI funding organizations will look at the impacts. Then we have impact evaluation of 3rd generation innovation policy by Swedish Growth Agency. Later on, Peter will say more about that. And finally, the 4th case is free innovation theory and policy, looking at how users are innovating and how they should be included in the policy scene, and the way we try to estimate the impact of policies. By looking at these cases, we will compare and contrast findings, and in the end come to kind of new type of impact evaluation concepts, instruments and approaches which should be more applicable to existing and evolving innovation space. Next one. Evolving innovation space, we conceptualize it as an increasing variety of innovations, product processes, marketing, organization, roles, relations, norms, and values. We also see that there's increasing variety of innovation actors and activities by government, industry, academia, users, and communities. And finally, we can also see that innovation diffusion and spillovers take place in various ways. They can be through commercial transactions, through entrepreneurial activities, via sharing. They can be policy-driven or even crisis-driven. Next one. With the visible presentation as well, I hope. So we are talking about evolving policies and impact assessments. As we all know, the policies have developed over time and they become more complex from modes 1, 2, and 3, from technology policy to systems and entrepreneurship. And finally, now we are talking about transformative change as a policy objective. So the complexity of policies is increasing over time. Also the way how to implement the new type of policies and how to make effective impact analysis is getting much more complex. And the questions are, what should we measure and how, what is the validity of our measuring and reliability of the indicators. Examples of challenges for innovation policy, as we all know, include, for instance, climate change agenda, quite recently pandemic and its numerous effects on economy, society, and globalization, as well as, for instance, energy transition, where price variations are influencing besides policy a lot. We even saw negative price for the energy. So how the policies should tackle all this kind of complexities, and how should we evaluate the impact that is even more complex. And then I will say a very few words about the international case studies. The next one, please. So the first case study will talk about the inclusive innovation policy. And we start with the analysis of NSF project portfolio in order to find better ways to assess how RD impacts marginalized groups like poor and racial minorities. And they have developed this immediate inclusion criterion as a new framework to assess funding portfolios. Besides this work, we are already moving forward and making some comparative analysis of the responsible research and innovation framework by the EU and the broader impact criteria as a US approach, and see what the inclusiveness, for instance, means in these different approaches. Next one, please. As I mentioned, we have also Novo Nordisk Foundation, which is actually, I think it's bigger than the Gates Foundation as a RDI funding organization at the moment. So they have developed very explicit and highly developed impact evaluation process. And as an organization, they are not only trying to maximize the societal impact, but also to make sure that the impacts are not distorting the national RDI space in Denmark and internationally. And the central questions with the Novo Nordisk Foundation include: what are the potential lessons for the wider society in terms of tools and methods to fund scientific communities? How to evaluate the funding effects on research, education, and health outputs, and how to evaluate the collaboration activities between research and industry. Next one. The third case is about Swedish Agency for Growth Policy Analysis, and Peter, who is present here, will talk more about this. And here the topic is specifically the third generation innovation policies and how can they properly be evaluated. Fourth case, next please. Free Innovation Theory and Policy by Professor Jason Potts, who is contributing to this area. Here we see that consumers and household sector are also very active, sort of free innovators, developing innovators that are pioneering and of the economic consequence. And also the developing economic models and analysis of how free innovation drives economic growth is being developed, as well as theory to develop measures and design of optimal policy settings. So trying to see how we can make the best impact via policy, also including this sort of free innovation by household sector. Next one, please. So how to measure the RDI impacts in the evolving innovation space? We try to give some answers and ideas on what are the new methodologies of impact analysis and could they be developed further. We can see innovation as an economic growth perspective, structural renewal and knowledge spillovers as a way to tackle grand challenges and sustainable development. And of course, we want to see how can policy actors and tools accelerate development, for instance, private organizations and users as innovation actors and innovation resource. And of course, we also want to see what are the unintended possible impacts that benefit only few. They could benefit a large community as well, but often some groups will have less than others. And just the next one, summarizing proposed project. The need for the project is that new innovation space and evolving policies create need for new impact evaluation concepts and methods. Our approach is literature analysis and international comparative analysis of policies and impact evaluation methods. And benefits that we want to create more effective RDI policies for new innovation space driven by improved impact evaluation. And of course, we want to build up research capacity in Finland and among team members as well. And the next one is just presenting the research team. And I would like to thank you very much and apologies for the technical problems so far. Thank you.
Peter's slides. So I have now changed the slides. Hopefully you can see Peter's first slide. Can you, Peter, confirm that you are seeing this?
I'm seeing the slides.
Yes, great. So please go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you, Jari, for the introduction. So my name is Peter Stensson, and I'm working at the Swedish Agency for Growth Policy Analysis, where we try to evaluate and make analysis of growth policy, but more specifically industrial policy and innovation policy in my team. We had a large project around what we call third generation innovation policies. And today I would like to say a little bit about some of the conclusions there for how to evaluate this, and also an ongoing research about the premise of the third generation and the models of these policies and how that might affect the outcome. So please change the slide. And also we're really happy to be part of this ELVIS consortium where we learn so much from the other parties. So we looked into how to evaluate these third generation innovation policies. And in these third generation, you have mission-oriented sustainability transitions. So there's a mix, but the one of the underlying changes from the second generation is directionality, that they try to steer the impact. So we started off by saying that some industrial and innovation policies have effect and others don't. And this is very important because it's really hard to see which one are the best and how to choose the ones that actually will make a difference. So that's what we're trying to do. And this is very hard when you measure kind of the first and second generation, and then we try to measure on the output variable of the growth of firms, right? So that is tricky in itself. And then you add that you also want to see if it has changed the direction. And then we ask us the direction of what? So this is where we have tried to understand this a little bit better. And one of the conclusions was that when you make these kind of policies, it's very important to have a really clear program theory. So you have really kind of thought through what will happen and set realistic hypotheses of these big, often big policies. And in this program theory, you can also then decide if it's possible to make a quantitative or qualitative evaluation. And we also thought a little bit about how to measure directionality. So one idea is to really look for these kind of DARPA grand challenges where they have there is no real technology for autonomous vehicles, and then they set up a prize or a competition where you have a lot of actors coming in, and in a few years you tend to see, or in this case you saw how it developed new technology. So some kind of market formation. Another way that we have tried out is to work with Ron Boschma and Pierre-Alexandre Balland, where we ask them to look at how patents and other kind of change their technology classes over time, and if that correlated with the innovation funding, and that is something I could recommend to look deeper into to try to understand directionality, and that could also be to more sustainable technologies, of course. And then we also looked into the whole innovation system literature, and I guess the audience know this at least as well as I do. But that is also possible to set up some kind of idea of how to change directionality. And important is that not only think that this will give effects, but really have some kind of counterfactual reasoning around the effects so you try to capture that the effect comes from the actual policy. Please, Helga, could you change that slide? And then I will turn to the second part of the talk, where I and Jakob Tischler from Karlstad University, we've done research around a similar theme, but we looked into more ex ante, how to evaluate these kind of policies ex ante, and look at how they're the models behind them. And what we found was that and we went into and looked at if we know that citizens, as von Hippel and others have shown that they are often an important part of the innovation system, one very crucial actor, but we could not find them that explicitly in the theoretical models. Some research have mentioned this, but we couldn't find that. And then we went and looked into the actual policies in Sweden, and the citizens weren't addressed, not through in the strategy nor in the actual funding. So we looked into one specific case where we food waste reduction. We did that because we know that the majority of waste is in households, and that would make sense to target households if you looked into how to change behaviors and find new innovative ideas around this. But in the Swedish, and now we looked into a few other policies around this, and we couldn't find that citizens are included. We could, however, find that there are innovative citizens. For example, in Denmark, there is a big citizen-driven kind of think tank that make these kind of changes. Okay, so the implication of this study would be then that the theoretical models and also the models used in policy needs to be upgraded. It needs to be include citizens, but I guess you also have to think about that this a lot of money pours into these kind of policies now, so it's super important to get the models right from the beginning. And then secondly, that if you then want to target citizens, these kind of funding schemes are probably not the best way. That they're often we talk about this kind of diffusion failure that to address citizens. Then you probably should find some kind of policy where you can help them to diffuse their innovations. Yes, that's what I wanted to convey. Thank you.
Interesting talks, and I'm sure we get to discuss about these points later. Next, we have Lena's slides here. So Lena, please.
Okay. Thank you, Helga. So, hi everyone. My name is Lena Kuntu, and I come from University of Vaasa, Finland. And my topic is related to Oslo manuals, and especially about active role of demand-side actors. Okay, now you can change the light. So we have studied how innovation space have evolved in Oslo manuals during decades. And what we have found that in the first 3 editions, innovation space has changed from technological product and process innovation to cover also services, organizations, and marketing. And then about the newest one, the innovation is considered all over the society. So it covers all 4 economic sectors: business, government, non-profit, and households. Then next one, Helga, please. So we have studied evolving innovation base in 3 dimensions. The first one is variety of innovation, and the second one is variety of actors and activities, and the third one is about spillovers and diffusion of innovation. So we have found that variety of innovation is wider, and the innovation types cover wider sectors. And about variety of actors and activities, they cover not only the supply side, but also the demand side of innovation, where customer and private consumers play a general role. And about spillovers and diffusion, we have study that non-commercial mechanisms have taken increasing role parallel with the traditional commercial approaches in innovation diffusion. Then the next one, please. So there is new type of innovation born in informal communities, and the motivation of developers and users is not only the financial gain, but the desire to learn and really contribute certain community. And one example of that is GitHub, for example. And nowadays, internet-based platforms facilitate communities of users which increasingly co-produce products and services independently or with companies. So that's happening. And what is interesting is that an active role of demand side also reveal areas which supply side does not meet expectation of the users. So this is important also in point of sustainable view, because it would be beneficial if supply side and demand side understand better each other. So this was my short comment about active role of demand side actors. Okay, thank you. Then yes, I have also this one slide. If someone like to know what is the Oslo manual, so it's based on the experience gained from collecting and analyzing innovation data in both OECD and EU countries and non-members economies. That was the last one. Thank you, Hilka.
Thank you, Lena. Just a short comment before we go to the next commentary. I noticed that there's a comment from Klaus in the chat. Thank you, and we will come back to that after Johanna's presentation. But I just wanted to let you know that it's indeed true that the interaction between us speakers and the audience is a bit difficult with this format, but we still would encourage you to post questions and comments in the chat, so then the speakers can try to respond to them. And also there's in the conference, there's the platform that allows discussions much better, so you can then also continue discussions later after this session related to those questions that you'd like to discuss. But thank you, Lena. And now we have one more commentary from Johanna Kallekoski before we take the comments and questions from audience. So please, Johanna.
Yes, thank you very much, Helka. So as was said, my name is Johanna Kallekoski and I work as a project researcher and doctoral student at the School of Management of the University of Vaasa in Finland. And my doctoral research addresses inclusive innovation policies and their application possibilities in urban development. And I also explore the meaning of inclusion in science, technology, and innovation policies. And today I will briefly present some insights from our ongoing research on inclusion as an objective of science, technology, and innovation policies. Yeah, if we go on to the next slide, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development defines inclusive innovation policies as those that aim to provide opportunities for different members of society to equally benefit from and participate from innovation. And these policies may include initiatives and activities such as financial support, community engagement and involvement, outreach activities and communication, or, for example, inclusive approaches to education and research. And I guess it can be widely agreed that inclusion is a desirable social goal in itself. And moreover, arguments for inclusion can be drawn from the scientific literature. First of all, some studies have found that the greater diversity of actors and viewpoints is beneficial for innovation and creativity, as it helps those involved in the process to think outside the box and approach an issue from multiple perspectives. Second, involving possible end users and different societal actors in development work increases the chances that the end result will correspond with the needs of the end users and society. And finally, by bringing often underrepresented groups on board with these processes, it may help improve societal involvement and equity by providing them with knowledge and opportunities. And these inclusive innovation policies also seek to bring in sideline members of society, fully utilize society's potential for innovation, but also to improve social justice and equality. But however, there has been some discussion about the problems of the term inclusion, because it is often seen as a highly contextual term that is somewhat imprecise, and this puts it at risk of losing meaning as a policy objective and analytical framework in research. And therefore, I think that practitioners, policymakers, and members of the research community may benefit from a more in-depth and shared understanding of inclusion. And this is one of the issues that we are trying to address in this project. If you go on to the next slide, thank you. Here are some results from an analysis that we conducted previously. We compared the frameworks of responsible research and innovation, or RDI, and broader impact criteria, or BIC, from an inclusion perspective, and we tried to determine how they define inclusion. The results highlight the twofold application of inclusion, because inclusion can happen in the process itself, or inclusion can be an end result goal. And we noticed that RDI has a strong emphasis on inclusive processes and the involvement of diverse actors in the innovation process from the beginning. And this approach seeks to ensure that the results of innovation and research respond to the needs of society and that they can be widely accepted and adopted. In contrast, the BIC seem to focus more on the question of who benefits from innovation, and inclusion in the BIC refers primarily to the participation of women, underrepresented minorities, persons with disabilities, and youth in research and education activities, while researchers also disseminate research results to wider audiences. And the BIC seems to aim to benefit and develop the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics fields by means of concrete research and innovation outcomes. And then we can go on to the next. Thank you. So finally, the RDI and BIC framework represent different approaches to inclusion, raising questions about the focus of evaluation. To evaluate the inclusiveness of innovation policies successfully, we should know what we are talking about when we talk about inclusion as a policy objective or as a means of societal impact. And also, inclusion is increasingly overlapping with other policy sectors such as education and urban development. So to conclude, conceptual ambiguity around the concept of inclusion can be harmful for goal-oriented science, technology, and innovation policy development and evaluation. And perhaps this policy could possibly benefit from a more specified definition of inclusion in order to produce more impactful guidelines and activities. So I think that was all from my part. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Johanna. So now I will stop sharing and hopefully then I can see you speakers. And okay, now I'm also seeing the chat and other faces. So So thank you for all the speakers, and sorry again for our audience for the technical problems. We didn't manage to quite avoid them, but hopefully the discussion part will go on smoothly. And I also have two phones with a chat and my notes, so I can start to manage this. We have some comments on the chat. So firstly, there was a comment from Klaus Snape. So I can perhaps first read it, and then I think at least Peter could perhaps reflect on the comment there. So the comment goes, great, I was already expecting the Nordic countries taking the lead in developing new impact and evaluation assessment methods for STIP purposes. 2 years ago, I was involved in developing a monitoring and evaluation system and even a digital tool in Germany for agriculture and food, but the project outcome did not further spread out. Unfortunately, we can with this session format not discuss nor exchange experience. So Peter, do you have some kind of reflections and ideas on Klaus's comment, please?
Yeah, I don't know exactly what you've done, Klaus, but it looks very interesting. And what I think, as I've tried to mention, is that to be able to, when we talk about change of directionality, if we just focus on that part of these third generation innovation policies, then there is so much preparation for evaluations that has to be done. You have to kind of discuss what is this change of directionality, and how can we make that more concrete, and can we find evidence for this, and all these kind of structured approaches to evaluation. I'm super eager to learn and discuss, definitely.
Thank you. Do other speakers have some reflections on these Klaus's comments?
Thank you, Klaus. It would be interesting, of course, to learn more the work that you have been involved. I think what Peter especially demonstrated quite nicely is that when the topics become broader, the areas where policy wants to make an impact, often the policies also come very, very complex. And does it always need to be that way? Because it tends to be getting very heavy going. And also, of course, it is difficult to understand what is causing what, just like Peter explained. I don't know if you want to continue on this topic. Should the complex phenomena always be accompanied by complex policies as well, sort of question?
Peter, or do you want to reflect on that question?
Yeah, I think that's very interesting. I believe that a good policy should be very concrete in its target, in its goal. So you have to be able to find a way of making that pretty concrete. Of what if you have 500,000 or 50 million euros and you put that into innovation policy program, you have to be able to tell what you hope will happen with this money, and have that in some kind of program theory where it's easy for laymen to be able to follow. So then you can make it as complex as you want, right? But this kind of what will happen to the taxpayers' 50 million euros? What do we happen? What do we hope will happen in 2 years? And maybe set that in a bigger context if you want to, like these kind of innovation system theories or models, where you can tell that yes, we hope to be able to make a little bit of a difference in car batteries, because if we do that, we believe that could be a bottleneck for increased electric cars or whatever. But even that, I believe needs to be very understandable for those that are not deeply involved.
So what you're basically saying, Peter, is that whatever policy, it should have clear and measurable goals in order that you can evaluate whatever you want to do.
Yeah. Yes. Definitely. And I think especially when you say that you're going to solve big problems and there is a lot of hope, you really need to understand which policies work and which don't, and it's so important because we believe so much that this will be able to make a transition and make the world a little bit better. Then we also need to be able to understand if it works or not. And right now it's very hard.
Thank you. I noticed there's a question from Stephen in the chat. It goes, how open are policymakers to the proposed changes in evaluation, do you think? Perhaps some ideas on this question.
No, I think anyone of the team who's been at least in the meetings in Finland so far, we have got very kind of enthusiastic response from the policymakers, and they want to know and understand more because they realize that they have a very complex topic at hand.
And I can add that I think Stephen is it's a very good question because if you set up policy programs where you put in a lot of money, then you want them to be successes often. So I don't think the policymakers will be the ones pushing for in better evaluations. However, in the Parliament of Sweden, we have seen quite a discussion around these topics because of the lack of rigorous evaluations. In industrial policy generally in Sweden. So in Parliament, where you have a little bit more of opposition, then it might be a little bit easier.
And I think I could add to what Peter just mentioned, that when we have the BIC broader impact criteria, where we would also like to see the innovation policy to benefit more groups than it does now, and especially those groups that are not being benefited before. So for surely you'll know that those who have been enjoying good flow of money, they are not that eager to share it with some others. So that's just the way life goes, really.
Thank you. And then Johanna, did you notice that you have been following the chat also? What kind of questions there are from the audience still?
Yes, I have been reading the comments and I noticed that Frank is asking about what is the role of citizen science in RDI, and I would say that what I have noticed that it is very important from the community engagement and also from education point of view, so that the research that is carried out is also participatory for the citizens. So yeah, I have seen that it is important in RDI.
Thank you. Do other speakers want to reflect on that citizen science question?
I think at least what is a parallel phenomena very strong in the Nordic countries is the open science thinking, where you kind of would like to share and involve more parties into the research and make it more accessible and transparent. And I think these phenomena pretty much go hand to hand, but of course it takes time to change the existing systems, and the work is going on.
Yeah, and perhaps I've noticed during this conference there's been quite a lot of discussion about this like reflexivity and learning from different societal actors and using different kind of knowledges in policy development, and we are already quite good at collecting information, collecting data and information and opinions of different people, but what we should still learn is how to actually make use of that knowledge. And I guess citizen science projects are dealing with similar questions, that it's relatively easy to engage people in when we, for example, collect opinions and data, but then it's a different thing to somehow co-learn and utilize those collected data and knowledge in different processes. So that's something I've noticed throughout the discussions in different sessions. There's been quite a lot of talk about that.
Yeah, indeed. Then there is another question. The project has a really exciting comparative approach involving researchers and policy analysts from a range of countries. Could you say a bit about the learning from other countries' transformative policy approaches? Anybody want to comment on this one?
Maybe Peter has most analytical experience on this.
Is a bit about the learning from other countries. Yeah, so I'm part of an OECD committee where they look at mission-oriented policies. So I guess that's one sub-sample. So OECD is doing quite a bit to gather kind of examples from different countries, and they also have in this mission-oriented, they have a website that's open for everyone to look at, and they try to gather these kind of examples and what evidence for this. It seems to me that it's very novel still. There are some kind of historic examples, more into these innovation competitions where DARPA has done a lot, but these more new ones where, as Jari said, more kind of complex, bigger, larger, transformative. It's still kind of very early days where we looked at the top sector program in the Netherlands, for example. So like 3-4 years ago, we started this project, and then we asked Erik Arnold at Technopolis, one of these private companies doing evaluations and stuff, to look at get some kind of concrete cases of these kind of policies, and it was really hard to find. So I think there are more now, but they haven't. We don't know. They haven't been evaluated yet. Sorry for the rambling.
I think, Peter, it's just a case that it's relatively new approach, and to make transformation happen, it takes time. So obviously that means that we don't have much evaluation information and understanding at the moment yet.
And I noticed there are some comments still in the chat.
Yeah, we have 5 minutes left for this session, so we can still take a couple of comments.
Yeah, so there are comments from Klaus related to complexity. There's a question that how do you want to deal with complexity 2 times contingency, to ask the project coordinators for their estimates regarding the current and expected future societal project impacts. Jari, perhaps do you want to? We have one partner in the Elvis project coming from Denmark, and they have in the Novo Nordisk Foundation developed quite an ambitious model for understanding the societal impact of their activities. Could that part of our project somehow relate to this question that Klaus is proposing? Do you want to say a few words about that case study?
Yes, I think they have a problem of having to spend a lot of money, which means that they want to evaluate what they will achieve, but they will also like to evaluate, as I mentioned, not to distort the whole system because of their large funding flow, which is a kind of problem that the public sector normally don't have, because it's a public money. But this, as a private operator, they are very large fish in a small pond in Denmark, which is good for them, but also it's causing a new type of issues. And their view is also that they take much broader view on evaluation of the impacts than they used to, and they are just working on that topic now, and they will launch the new approach this springtime. They used to be very focused in science projects only on publications, patents, and this kind of things, but now they are broadening to more qualitative areas, and this kind of long-term effects, etc. But I mean, the good thing that they have is that they have plenty of resources, but that will huge resources create their own problems as well. Maybe Peter knows about that as well, but the world is never simple. If you don't have one problem, you will have the other one. So.
Thank you. I noticed there's one more question from Steven, and Lena perhaps could reflect on that. So it goes, how important is the change in the Oslo manual, and what is happening at the country level? Lena.
Yes, I think it's very important that policymakers are aware of these changes, that there's new kind of innovation systems and actors, and also notice that there's many possibilities for new innovations, and maybe the big and interesting point was that this supply side doesn't not that supply side doesn't meet the expectation of the users, so from the demand side. So this is important and beneficial that supply side and demand side needs meet, and they understand each other's better, and this is also this sustainability point of view. And in the point of policymakers, they should understand this new change and what kind of new policy activities should be made in future. Maybe that's the most important thing.
Thank you, Lena, and thank you, everyone. We have actually 1 minute left, so this was a short session, and thank you also for the audience for listening, and also for your good questions, and you can definitely continue the discussions by using the conference platform. So thank you everyone, and enjoy the rest of the conference. Bye.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.